Get our recording started. There we go. Good morning again. Welcome. All right, so share my screen now. So you now see this on your guys' screen when you get to Summit. It will look like this as always. Going over here to year view, finding creative writing. Homegoing is what you're clicking on, our project. Right? And then you'll see checkpoint one says reading notes. So you want to click on that. And then I want you to scroll down here to where you see entry event note taker. All right. And then it should look something like this. Okay. All right. And this is what I want you guys to have pulled up. All right. So please get that pulled up right now. Take like a minute and get that pulled up. When you have it pulled up, please let me know in the chat so I know we are ready to move on. Right. And again, that is the entry event note taker under checkpoint one in Summit. I'll put that in the chat as well, so you can see it that way. Okay. We're looking for the entry event note taker under checkpoint one in Summit. When you get it pulled up, please let me know in the chat. So that I know we are ready to keep going here. Again, it looks like this. Okay. You'll find it under checkpoint one, reading notes. Scroll down, should be the second link right here. So again, when you have that pulled up, let me know in the chat. Zanelia, you said you're there. Good, good. All right. Oh, Zach, you're on your phone. All right. Glad you were still able to pull it up, though. So, Rashawn, just waiting on you. Hopefully, you can get that pulled up. We'll give it like another 30 seconds. All right. And then we will keep going here. All right, so we should have this note taker pulled up. We are going to do exactly that. Take notes with it because we're going to start talking about family trees and such. So we're going to start digging into the background of our story that we're going to read, Homegoing. Okay. And it has a lot to do with family trees, family heritage. If you guys remember from class last Thursday, where we kind of went over our overview for the project, we were talking about, you know, our past, our present, and our future. What do we draw the most inspiration from? And there's a lot of insightful discussion about that. You know, do the paths that our previous ancestors, previous generations take? Do they affect who we are, and who we become? We were talking about all that stuff. So today we're going to kind of dig into that. So to start off, I want to ask, has anybody ever made or looked at, a family tree of your family? Have you done like um, ancestry.com, or has your parent or guardian or anybody in your family like made a family tree, kind of went back and traced like, this is the lineage? Has anybody ever done anything like that? Rashawn, I just got your chat set almost there. That's cool. I know Rashawn says nope. So anyone, Zenelia or Zach, either of you ever like done a family tree, had one done? No. Okay. So, oh, Zach says yeah. Okay. How was that, Zach? So you did a little one for school. It's probably like at a previous project. Okay. So how was that, Zach, when you did yours? Did you do like a more in-depth one where like trace the ancestry and like your DNA percentage and stuff, or was it just kind of like you mapped out like this is who's who? Interesting, super huge. Yeah. So that's okay if it wasn't super huge. We're going to talk about that. But what was interesting about it? Because I saw you said it was interesting. So what made it interesting? Just the different people you discovered, or how they were all connected, or what? Background story. I've always been interested in that. I think it's cool how far our family was back. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good point, and that is exactly kind of what this story deals with, that background and trace hey Faye, and tracing kind of our families back.
Oh shit.
Right, and I see Shamir is back in here with us as well. Good morning.
It is Monday, ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
My fault.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't even know it was Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like
Stop talking. Stop talking.
All right. Good morning again. Those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about family trees. We are starting to go over the background for our story Homegoing. So, uh, you know, anybody who has kind of just joined us, like Shamir, I see you're back in, Faye, or Miss Jess, if you want to share if you've ever done a family tree, that's kind of what we're talking about now. So Zach said she did one a little bit ago. It was interesting to see kind of how far her family went back and kind of the backstory. Um, I also did one with my family a little bit ago. Not me personally, but we got my sisters and I got our dad and my mom Christmas gift a few years ago for ancestry.com. So we traced our dad's side of the family all the way back to like our ancestors in Italy and like where they were from exactly, and like the different percentage and all that stuff. And basically, yeah, I did when I was little, and then I did different ones though. Okay. So, and again, Faye, since you did one, did you find anything that was interesting that you didn't realize at first, or something that was new that you learned? How was it? What did you gain from that family tree experience? Anything? was my mom's side and more on my dad's side. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing is we realize just how far these can go back. And so, think about, okay, when we see how far all those lines go back and all those different people, think about all of those different family members' journeys to get to you right now. And that's kind of what this story is going to focus on, like how are our paths different, even though we come, even though we come from the same kind of family tree. All right. So thank you guys for sharing a little bit about the story, the text, right? So again, our story is called Homegoing. I have, excuse me, I have my copy right here, came in the mail. So hopefully we'll be able to have me read this copy and you guys follow along. I have like a link for like a PDF that you guys can use. Right? So we'll see kind of how it works. I think we'll be able to get it figured out. So won multiple book awards. This book did, including the American Book Award, the Audie Award for Literary Fiction Classics, and the National Book Circle Critics John Leonard Prize. It is written by Yagayasi, and she is a young Ghanaian American writer, meaning she's from Ghana. Right, and it is first published in 2016. The story starts in 18th century Ghana and follows two sisters on very different paths to America. So you can see that kind of depicted here. So if our story takes place in the 18th century, what years is this story set in then? What is the kind of, if something's in the 18th century, about what year or what span of years is that happening in? Anybody know?
1800s.
So not, I just saw your chat too. So not 1800s, all right? But you
Let's
are,
see.
say it again.
That's my boy.
So not 1800s, all right? I can say we think that because it's 18th century, but if we think about the math and think about, okay, the first century, a century is 100 years, right? So the first century starts at 0 and goes to 100. So then the second century would start at 100 and go to, 199 or 200, right? And think about it, we're in the 21st century right now, but it's 2020, not 2120. So again, when do we think this would be? Not the 1800s, but when, if it's in the 18th century? I see 1900s.
1900s.
So not 1800s, not 1900s. So what's the only one left? Again, think like, okay, we're in the 21st. So if we use right now as an example, this is the 21st century, but the year is 2020. So we have 21st century, but 2020 is the year.
Oh, 1700.
Yeah, right. I know it can be tricky, but it always is. It's always kind of one behind. I'm just making sure, seeing if we lost anybody or not on our attendance. Yeah, it looks like we got everybody still good. All right. Yeah. So whenever you see something like that, all right, the year is always one behind what the number for the century is. So 18th century means it's happening in the 1700s. 19th century means it's happening in the 1800s. And like I said, right now we're in the 21st century, but it's the 2020. 2020. So it's like 2000, right? So it's always one behind. So yes, this would be happening in 1700s in Ghana in Africa. So, and this picture might be a hint, but what is very prevalent then at this time in Africa and in America, pretty much all along the Atlantic? What's going on that's very prevalent? at this time around that part of the country in the 1700s? What would have been happening then? Any thoughts, guesses? If our story is set in the 1700s around Africa, what kind of what thing would have been very prevalent at this time? And like I said, this picture might be kind of a hint as to what I'm talking about. What would have been going on at that time in history, 1700s in Africa? Or maybe not just Africa, maybe all along the kind of Atlantic coast there. Any thoughts? Or do we all need a refill on our coffee this morning? Sorry, maybe you guys weren't able to hear me. Make sure I'm not muted. So we said our story's set in the 18th century, which is the 1700s in Ghana, which is in Africa. So what I'm asking now is, what would have been happening at that time in history that would have been a key part of Black people's lives, a key part of what's going on in what would have been going on in Africa, or across like the Atlantic. And like I said, this picture might kind of tip you off as to what I'm getting at. But what would have been happening at that time, 1700s in Africa? Do you guys think that might
The
play?
beginning of slavery.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. And not even the beginning. That would have been like kind of the peak, like slavery at its height. So that would have been like the height of the transatlantic slave trade, 1700s, because slavery, that whole thing starts in the Americas in like 1620, right? And it starts in Portugal like 200 years or so before that. So when we get to the 1700s, now it's like, they've got it down. So, and you can see by this picture right here of the two sisters, they're chained up, right? So they start this story as slaves, and we'll see, like it says, they take two very different paths to America. So slavery is probably going to be a big part of this, not just the beginning, but maybe throughout the entire novel. And you can see even from the cover artwork, one sister kind of has the traditional like African headwear, this one kind of a little bit more modern. So kind of see what that entails. A little bit about the author here. Yaa Gyasi is from Ghana, from a city called Mampong, right? And she moved to Huntsville, Alabama at age 10. She has a BA in English from Stanford University and a Master of Fine Arts from the Iowa Writers Workshop. And Homegoing is her first novel, which she published at age 26. Right, and so imagine your first novel you ever published goes on to win all these awards. So very impressive. In 2016, she was recognized as the National Book Foundation's 5 under 35, meaning 5 authors under 35 years old that are kind of, people to watch, people that are gonna make some moves. Okay. Currently lives in New York City. So that is a little bit about the background of the book. Any questions with any of that so far? All right, awesome. Well, what I want to do now is this. Now we're going to start using the note taker that everybody should have pulled up. And I apologize. Those of you who have joined a little bit later, you want to make sure you go to Summit, find our class, Creative Writing, find our project, Homegoing, okay? And then you should see checkpoint 1 right here, reading notes. I want you to scroll down until you see entry event note taker right here, should be the second link. and then pull that up and it should look like this, okay? And that should also be in the chat as well, on where to go, or what we're using, I should say. Okay. So please pull that up now if you still don't have it, right? And what we're gonna do is this, okay? You can see it says task 1, and you will also see a task 1 at the top of your note taker. Okay? So on page VII of the book, because those pages before the book actually starts, we refer to by the Roman numerals, right? There is an epigraph, and you can see it kind of right here on my copy, all right? There is an epigraph, or another word for an epigraph would be a short inscription or quote at the beginning of a book to suggest a theme. And it is translated into English. It says, the family is like, the family is like the forest. If you are outside, it is dense. If you are inside, you see that each tree has its own position. And that is an Aiken proverb, right? And then you see we have 2 questions to respond to about that epigraph. So again, looking at that page at the beginning of the book, like I just showed you on my copy, we have that short inscription or quote, what we call an epigraph, that kind of gives us a preview of, what the book might be about, what its themes may be. And this one, in this case, says, the family is like the forest. If you are outside, it is dense. If you are inside, you see that each tree has its own position, okay? So if we look at our note takers, right, like you have pulled up, I have shared on my screen right now, we see task 1 at the top, and the first part there says, define in your own words what is an epigraph, okay? So the epigraph is the thing that I just read to you all. So can somebody please, in the chat, or you can come off mute, tell us in their own words, what is an epigraph? Can you define that for us, please? In your own words, so we can all kind of fill this in on our note takers.
A short quote at the beginning of a book to suggest a theme.
Yes, thank you very much. And that was who, Zenalia?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Zenalia. Good job. So we can put exactly that into our note takers. All right. So I'm going to highlight mine in yellow so you guys can all see, but feel free to copy this into your note taker as well if you were able to follow along. So we can say a short quote at the, if I can remember how to spell, beginning of a book that suggests the theme. Okay, and I will leave that there. Very good job. And someone else has just joined us. It is Ayana. Welcome. Good morning. All right. So if you're just joining us, we are filling out the entry event note taker. You can find that on Summit under our project. So you go to creative writing, go to homegoing, and then click on checkpoint 1. And then if you scroll down, it should be the second link right here. It says entry event note taker, and then it looks like this. Okay. And again, if you are joining a little bit late and you're a little bit behind, the recording of this class will be up on YouTube later today. And I will also be starting the Summit Lab in the afternoon from 1 to 3. And don't forget, that will be with the same link that you used for class. So the link is the same, just one link per teacher for everything this term, okay? So you can always come visit me there if you want to get caught up as well. All right, but good job. So we have our epigraph defined. Now we see the next part of our note taker says, annotate and analyze the epigraph below. So it has that same one we looked at in the slide. The family is like the forest. If you are outside, it is dense. If you are inside, you see each tree has its own position. And so we have 2 kind of questions to think about here. what do you think it means? So just in general, what does this epigraph mean? What is it saying? And what do you think it will mean for the text or the story? So how do you think this is going to affect the book as a whole, right? Ladies and gents, what I want you to do right now is take the next 10 minutes and see if you can respond to those two questions on your own note takers, right? So think about that quote. Think about everything we've been talking about so far with kind of family trees and the influence of past generations, and see if you can come up with a response to each of these questions right here. So what do you think this epigraph means, and what do you think it will mean for the text? How will it affect the story as a whole? Okay, so take about 10 minutes. I will leave the top part up there in case you are getting caught up, and I will check back in 10 minutes and see if you guys have come up with any thoughts for those two questions. All right, at the bottom of task 1 on your entry event note taker sheet. All right, thank you guys. Apologize for forgetting my screen share was on, but take about another 5 more minutes. If you still do not have anything jotted down for these questions right here, again, you are looking at the entry event note taker under checkpoint 1 on Summit. Okay, we have filled out the first part of here that I have highlighted in yellow. You are now looking at the epigraph and you are answering these two questions down here for part B. Okay, so about 4 more minutes. See what you can come up with there. Okay. So a couple more minutes, like I said, then we will check back in here. See what you guys have. I am going to be checking these on your Summit, so please make sure you are filling these out as we go. These are going to factor into checkpoint 1. All right. Thank you, guys. All right, y'all. Welcome back, Zach. Glad we got you back with us. So, does anybody have any thoughts they would like to share for this? Let's start with the first part here, okay? What do you think it means? So, this epigraph, our Aiken proverb here: the family is like the forest. If you are outside, it is dense. if you are inside, you see that each tree has its own position. What do we think that means? Does anybody have any thoughts for that? They can put in the chat or come off mute. Maybe somebody we haven't heard from yet today, if you are feeling so inclined. And Faye, I apologize. I just saw your chat. Sorry about that. So what do we think? Any thoughts on this first part? What do we think this quote means? The family is like the forest. If you are outside, it is dense. If you are inside, you see that each tree has its own position. So what does this mean? Families like forests. For outside, it's dense. So
I think this means that if you aren't family, then you don't hold any positions, then the family itself might feel closed or shut in, which will make you feel really uncomfortable.
you're saying if you aren't in the family, you might feel uncomfortable. Did I hear you
Yeah,
right?
if you don't hold a position like in the family, then
Okay. Yeah. I think you're definitely on the right track, right? It has to do with like, if you're in the family or if you're not in the family, just like, you know, because it's using this kind of simile of the forest, like we're outside the forest or we're inside the forest. And so if a forest, like if something is dense, like if a forest is dense, what does that mean? Does that mean there's a lot of it and it's hard to see through, or does that mean it's pretty open and we can see everything pretty easily? What do we think? And that's for anyone, not just you.
sure.
Oh, so we lost Miss Jess. Right. And Rashawn, I did just see your chat that yours is not popping up on your screen. No worries. Again, ladies and gents, you guys will all have chance to get caught up on this. You can always come to the Summit Lab, and the class recording will be on the Yes Philly YouTube page later today. But I think Zanelia is kind of on the right track here, but I'd like to hear from one or two other people if I can. She said has to do with being in the family versus being outside the family, which I think is true. So if you're outside the family is like a forest. They say if you're outside, it is dense. So what is that? What is that saying? If a forest is dense, can we see through it easily, or might it be tough to kind of see what's going on inside because there's a lot of trees and leaves and things like that? Which one do we think makes the most sense? Somebody who can tell me either in the chat or come off mute. Rashawn, was that supposed to be it's tough in the chat? I just see that in there right now. Is that a typo? Were you answering the question, or was that about something else? No worries. But yeah, you're right. It is tough. Okay. It's tough to see because if something is dense, it means there's a lot of it. So if we're outside the forest looking in, it's kind of tough to see, what's going on. It might be hard to understand how everything is connected. And like Zanelia said, you might not have your own position. You might not see kind of what's what. If we're inside the forest, then we see that each tree has its own position. Everything is rooted and it's all connected. So what might that mean in terms of a family? Like positions. Like what kind of positions might there be in a family? You know, is it a position like on a sports team? Is it you know a position like in a leadership role? What does that part mean? Any thoughts on that? What kind of positions could we have in a family that this might be talking about? Rashawn says leadership, definitely. What else? How think about your own family and like, the positions, the dynamic, who everybody, looks to for the final say. What other examples do we have of this? Like different positions in a family. Maybe somebody besides Rashawn. Zach, any thoughts? Faye?
Repeat your question.
What kind of, we're talking about this last part of the quote here where it says each tree has its own position. And if we're likening this to a family, like what does that look like in a family? Like what kind of positions are there in a family? Somebody already said leadership. Are there any other examples, or can we be more specific? Are these like, support, definitely. And Zaneo said grandma. Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Like generationally, there's different positions. So we think like the matriarch or the patriarch, like, okay, maybe it is the grandmother or the great grandmother or a great aunt or uncle, right? But there's that one person who they're kind of the oldest, and they're the oldest generation. So everybody else in the family has kind of descended from them one way or another. So everybody kind of looks to them for the final say. So I think we figure out, that, okay, that person might be at the top, and then maybe their children are kind of like the nieces and nephews who kind of keep everything in place. And then the children of those people are like the younger cousins, the generation who is now coming up and is kind of like trying to learn. And then maybe some of those people have small children. Okay, these are the babies. These are kind of like who we're nurturing. And so it all kind of works together. All right. But now to Zenalia's original point, if we know that, okay, but if you're somebody that's outside the family, are all of those positions, are they easy to see from the outside looking in? Or might you need to be more in the family to understand how all of that really works? What do you guys think? All of those positions, all those family dynamics, are those easy to see from somebody who's on the outside looking in? It's not just yes, but you have to be in the family. Yeah, exactly. So if you're not in the family, you might not understand or see those positions. Okay, and that's kind of where we can wrap it up and leave it today. And I'll answer this one. Make sure it's highlighted as well. Okay, but first of all, what do we think it means? This means that in each, it may be hard for someone outside of a family to understand the different roles and dynamics going on within the family, right? And so that's kind of what the book will dive into, because remember, we have two sisters here, each of whom is traveling to America, and they both take very, very different paths. Okay, so ladies and gents, that's where we can kind of leave it today. When we come back after the break, we will kind of finish up our background here. We'll look at some examples of family trees, dig into kind of one more task on our note taker, and then we'll kind of start making our own sort of friends and family community tree, right? And then we'll start jumping into reading the actual story. Okay, so thank you guys again. Really good job. Don't forget that the recording of this class will be up on the YouTube page. I will have an afternoon summit lab from 1 to 3 today. It will be the same link you use to get to this class. If I don't see you there, then I will not see you again until after the holiday. Well, we do have an assembly tomorrow at 11:30. So hopefully I'll see some of you there too. But if not, please be safe. Have a healthy and happy Thanksgiving. I hope safety-wise, none of you are traveling too far or with too many people. But if you do, I hope that you wear a mask, wash your hands, do all that safe stuff, so I can see all of you wonderful people afterwards. Thank you guys again. And if you have questions, shoot me an email or come to the Summit Lab. Let me know. All right. But you guys are good to go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end the chat. If I have you for English next period, I will restart the chat and then you can rejoin. Okay. All right, thank you guys. Have a good holiday, and I will see you. I'll see you soon.